Go ahead.
Um, Definitely would have run him over.
The FSD or human?
I don't know which one would have run him over.
I don't know. And we're off.
So it's going to navigate itself. It's navigating itself
Yes.
to Trader Joe's.
Yeah. Oh, the wipers work.
Did it decide that it needed to do the wipers?
Yeah, but inappropriately so, I think. Okay, so this is your first time in a Tesla
Yes.
and first time in full self-driving.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Well, and so your background is you're a lawyer.
I also am a lawyer, yes.
Okay, and what kind of vehicles have you driven in your life?
Oh, man, I have owned a lot of vehicles.
Electric vehicles?
I have never driven or owned an electric vehicle.
Okay, well, first of all, so I want to know what you think is happening right now with the tech. Based on what you've read in the media, what you understand about Tesla and full self-driving, like you are watching us go along here. You
Right.
see something on the screen. I'm not touching the wheel. How do you think the tech is working?
I mean, I'm just guessing because I would say it's using both the data it's got from GPS via your map that you told it where to go. It's using that, and then it's using a ton of image data that it's getting
So
up to the minute.
I'm going to take over here because it's too far to the left there as
Right.
you go over this hill. So
Not great.
So I take over and I'm going to re-engage. But yeah, so when you say using a ton of visual
So I
data,
think it's well, just from looking at this screen, I know that it's obviously got
you can see it's picking up
cameras
the cars.
that it's picking up all the stuff around us, and it's running it through whatever its programming is in terms of how to deal with it. But yeah, it seems like so it can navigate a turn. That's impressive.
Right. It's looking to the left
And
see
to the
if a
right,
car is
yeah.
coming.
Right.
So it's not like, yes, there's GPS. It obviously works with GPS to know where to go.
Right.
But it's live. Everything it's picking up here is live visual data.
Right.
So it's essentially reverse engineering a video game. It's taking the world, turning it into a video game, and then navigating through that video game.
Right.
Now this is 11.4.
Yeah, but don't you think that this image is for us? Okay, it's all dots and it's all zeros and ones for this thing.
Sure.
This image is for us to see what's is being propagated from the data it's using.
Right, but it's operating. This is a beta version, so it's operating based on rules. It's picking up these objects, and then it has rules, lines of code that say,
"This is how you respond
do
to
not,
this object.
Do not run into this
vector
object.
directly at you. Get out of the way."
And then it has code about lanes. So here it sees there's 2 lanes. You can see it's going to get into the right. Now here it always has a problem because there's this railroad track.
Yeah.
And there's stoplights right after the railroad track. So it's interesting to see where it stops. You can see it stopping before the railroad track because it thinks this is a stop sign. So I'm actually going to give it a little bit of accelerator to tell it, no, go ahead. The problem is it thinks that I'm telling it go through the red light, which it just did right there. Okay,
Nice.
so that's always been a problem on this beta.
Yeah.
And but I'm hoping that they're going to fix that with version 12. Version 12 is a totally different entity. It's not hundreds of thousands of lines of code. They're switching to a full neural network. So right now they're sending millions and millions of miles of visual data through a training supercomputer.
Sure.
And then it's going to be an end-to-end neural network.
Yeah, but is your car going to have that processing, or is your car communicating with the central processor?
It's not communicating with the central processor. So you get the brain map, which is local on your car. Then you could be off of the internet,
Right.
and it could still navigate FSD 12, full self-driving 12, end-to-end neural network. It takes in the visual data, runs it through the brain neural network that was created with those supercomputers, and then outputs right, left, stop, go.
Right.
That's going to be the next version. This one right here is a more line by line. If you see a stoplight, stop.
Logic.
Right.
Yeah. Crazy, dude.
Now I don't know if you heard about this recall.
No.
Oh, you didn't hear about the recall? Okay, well, it was all over the news a few weeks ago that millions of Tesla cars were recalled, and so everybody's writing these headlines like, oh my gosh, this is the end of Tesla. Essentially what it is, it's nagging me more. It's saying force the steering wheel more often, so I'm having to do that. And if I don't do that, then
the patch?
Yeah, it's just an over-the-air software update. And if I don't do that, then it kicks me out of.
Then it says you can't do.
It says you're a bad boy. You can't
self-drive. You gotta touch. You can't. It's not gonna let you fall asleep.
Yeah.
It's not gonna let you nap in this drive.
So let me ask you a question as a lawyer. What do you think of the legal implications of full self-driving? And you've been a criminal lawyer. You've done traffic cases where people break the law.
Yeah,
drinking and driving.
You know as well as I do that it's gonna have to be what's happening right now is the common law is dealing with it, like the way that the common law dealt with railroads in the 19th century. Like, essentially, we don't know. And I mean, I think the statutory schemes are going to follow the common law because, we get into an accident. Obviously, the obvious thing is like we get in an accident, whose fault is it?
Right.
And I personally, I think the best place to work that out is probably in the judicial system because, was it the program's fault? Was it your fault for not paying attention? Whatever.
Well, right now I'll tell you that it seems like all the warnings, everything is saying the driver is fully responsible.
Well, that makes sense.
You want to mess around with beta, the driver's still legally responsible. But if it gets so good to a point where I can sit in the back seat,
right,
then who's responsible? Is it the programmers or is it me? I mean, if it's so good that I don't need to be sitting here,
right, doing everything,
right, you're gonna have a whole new set of lawsuits against manufacturers. Like you didn't
right.
program this correctly.
Well, and I'm saying, in a perfect world, I would think that would work itself out over time in terms of the litigation, because that's how it worked 150 years ago. But I don't think we live in a perfect world, and I think that we live in a world where the powerful interests behind, all the technology that's happening in our world is going to press down on their side of the scale. So I'm not sure we get a perfectly great outcome, but obviously my answer as a lawyer to any question like this is it depends.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I think that the technology has got to basically get put through the process of our legal system in order to kind of come up with rules, because we don't really.
I don't think it's really been tested yet. I don't think there's been a high-profile case where somebody, where there was an accident on FSD and somebody sued Tesla. There may have been an accident where a driver got sued, but I think the insurance companies love it. Your insurance is lower in a vehicle that has this technology because the actuaries at the insurance companies know you're 5 times less likely to get into an accident while you're on FSD.
Right.
And in the future, if it's 10 times less likely, the insurance companies are going to love it. So if they are saying, fine, no, we'll pay out if you get in an accident, it's okay. They would prefer everybody's on FSD.
No, that's a good point, and they got a lot to say about what the outcomes are here. But clearly, we don't have good rules. I do think the one thing that's sort of like the unknown here is if you have some kind of horrific accident that's like, a 2-year-old child is killed or something, like there's also public response, and like certainly public attitude has turned against like the Elon Musks of the world pretty hard in the last like 5 years.
Well, we've polarized as a country, maybe as a world, like we seem to do with every issue. Like there are people that love him, and there are people that can't.
Well, what I'm saying is Silicon Valley, since I was a teenager, enjoyed almost completely uncritical, like reception in popular media for the first 20 years of the internet. And then all of a sudden, social media starts coming around 10 years ago, and we're like, start seeing some of the issues in our own personal lives. And then, yes, what happens in celebrity culture is we lionize people like Elon Musk is a genius for, look at all this forward-looking, blah, blah, blah. And then, well, he's not a genius. He's a regular guy that has some good ideas and a lot of money. And, like, all of a sudden, celebrity culture looks at him and is like, no, he's actually a terrible monster.
Right.
And that's what celebrity culture does. Put everybody up on a pedestal, then shred them when the time comes because they do something.
Especially in the age of social media.
Yes.
It's so much easier and more efficient to shred people.
Well, and it's a parlor game for what is social media.
It's a parlor game to grab attention. You divide people, then you have sources that cater to those people just to get their attention, to get the clicks.
Well, and that's what drives the clicks. The clicks are all about anger. Is the easiest way to drive attention, is like outrage.
Look at this. Look at this. We have the right of way. It stopped.
Decided to make
So
some
it's like-
choices.
Yeah, it can make you feel awkward sometimes, but it's overly cautious, it seems.
So does it
And we're
have...
gonna, since we're at our destination, I'm gonna put in a new destination. Navigate to Lowe's.
So does it have...
Let's see, hold on. Lowe's. Oh, you can keep talking.
So does it have, like, is it reading...
Go ahead.
Definitely would have run him over.
The FSD or human?
I don't know which one would have run him over.
I don't know. I mean, I was barely paying attention, and I was able to stop for him. But that's like one of those situations where the human's saying, like, go. I am paying attention. See, this nag is telling me, pay attention, pay attention. I am paying attention. I'm worried that they're trying to kick me off FSD. But anyway. So,
No, I mean, I do. The pedestrian there absolutely had the right of way. And that is totally... This is an Iowa thing.
yeah, but he says go.
No,
go.
I know, but I'm not... You did the right thing. I'm not going.
See, now why is it stopping in the middle of the road here?
Well, it's got, it's nervous about that stop sign. It's very big.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
very, maybe it's a little bit like high. Maybe it got a little stoned and it's like slowing down because it's like far away. It can't really tell.
Yeah, it had an afternoon on the Joe Rogan podcast.
It's like, where am I?
Yeah. So I put in a new destination, and we're going through this kind of, this is a high pedestrian area. There's not a lot of pedestrians here right now, but it does, when there's a ton of vectors, if there were a ton of people walking here and people stepping up to the curb like they're going to cross, it will stop.
Uh-huh.
It's not going to look at the guy and see that he's going, go ahead.
Right.
Now, here's the thing, though. Version 12 will probably be able to take enough clips where people are saying go ahead and label those as, no, a good driver would go ahead. The guy wants you to go, so go.
Yeah.
Version 12 would be capable of making that kind of discernment.
Uh-huh.
Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know, because technically you're breaking the law. Like when I took my driving test at 16, somebody waved me through the crosswalk. I went, and they said, no, that was you can't do that.
Yep.
So here's another.
That was how my teacher taught it too, was like, no, they have the right of way. And he also said, if you let them, he also was like, don't wave them across either. Because if you're like, yeah, go, and then a train comes by and smashes them, like, there's a potential for your liability there.
So this is good. We're actually going to get on the highway here, so you'll see.
That's under construction.
Yeah, well,
let's see how it does with this.
Yeah. But no, I mean, it's interesting to see what's going to happen in the long run with the developments. But the first things first, I mean, we have to get out of beta. We have to get to a point where, I mean, I want it to get to a point where, and I think it will, where it's the robo-taxi. It's you can summon your car, get in the backseat. I'm going to be careful here because I don't think it knows where this lane is. A little snow on there, but I think it did okay. This is obviously not on the maps.
Right.
And it's stopping here way too cautiously. I'm going to take over because we have a flashing yellow here, and it would probably have just frozen there, and I don't know if it would be able to pull this yellow light maneuver. We got this guy.
All right.
So like that's a situation where it would have just frozen at that intersection.
So ostensibly though, at this point, it's just like really a lot of driver assist. Like, you occasionally need to pay attention to it in the sense of, is it going to handle this like sort of troubling traffic
right here,
scenario?
I mean, so there's a solid white line. I think a normal human would probably change lanes,
right?
Which I'm actually going to do just because this construction has led to a situation where you have two solid white lines.
Mine's going to be blown.
Yeah, and it might stay in the. I have another video where it actually did pick out that as a lane. So it's not good enough. This beta is not good enough to sit in the back seat.
All right.
Now, do I think it would cream off the road? No, I don't. I think it would probably come to a stop.
Yeah.
And it would be an embarrassing situation.
Right.
But that's the interesting question. Like, let's say it's 10 times safer. It gets to a point where it's 10 times safer than a human. But the one time it crashes, it runs head on into a wall, which a human would never do. Like,
Right.
people aren't going to accept,
Right. that
even if it's one time,
Right.
even the one instance that's the edge case, if it flies you off a bridge, people are not going to accept that.
No, and that's what I mean when I'm talking about this, like, a catastrophic thing. If there's one catastrophic thing, like, we're already socialized to, like, catastrophize the world around us. I mean, I have this conversation with people all the time because I have children, with people that have children, like, about what's quote unquote safe for them to do. Because, like, go look at the playground.
See, right, it didn't know. I had another video, but I knew it was going to do that. So I had to take over. Yeah, go ahead. You were saying.
Think about, like, when you're down at that playground in Iowa City in the Ped Mall, like, there's parents that just, like, are on the playground with their kid. The playground is made entirely of rubber.
Right.
Like, so you could not, like, look at it. Like, it's designed by engineers to be like, there's not a sharp object anywhere on that playground.
Yeah.
And it only gets up as high as, like, 6-8 feet.
Yeah.
So there's no way. Like, when you talk about the one that they just built where it's, like, much higher tower, they can crawl up and they're, like, 2 stories high. They can't, there's no way out of it, you know? And so it's like, why, parents, are you in there? Well, we've got this sensibility that, like, the world is dangerous. The world is very dangerous for children. Don't leave your children alone. Don't let your children out of your sight because there's all these sexual predators behind every corner. Well, that's not really true. That's just, we know, just like you're talking about with the catastrophic accident, like, we have awareness due to the media and news cycle of pretty much every awful thing that happens in this country, everywhere. Well, there's 330 million people. If, like, a bad thing happens, that's not very likely for all the rest of us.
Yeah.
In fact, I saw data once that if you, based on kidnapping data, if you let your kid stand on a corner all by themselves, your little 8-year-old, 6-year-old kid, unattended, based on the likelihood of them being snatched, they could stand there for 250,000 years before they would absolutely get snatched.
Right.
Right.
Those are the odds.
That's the odds. It's like, so I'm not going to live my life, especially, I don't think people appreciate what you're doing to your child when you don't let them out of your sight. You're telling your child, you're not capable in this world on your own.
Yeah, we bumper guarded the whole, padded the whole world.
Yes.
For sure. But I mean, those statistics are tough because it's the big average statistics are hard. You know, where are you talking about leaving your kid? There's
my
town
point
in Iowa or south side of Chicago.
Yeah, but people don't get ripped off in the south side of Chicago any faster than they do anywhere else. It's just that we have a perception of that. You know, I was just talking with my sister about this. Like, I've been in the west side of Chicago. Like, one, if you're a white person walking around the west side of Chicago, like, they don't mess with you. You want to know why? Because most of you are there to buy heroin. So, like, no one's going to do anything to you. You're literally the customer of some drug dealer.
Right.
So there's, like, this perception just because it is a dangerous place. But does that apply to everybody that's walking down the street? Like, it's not like people are just driving around shooting at anyone that walks by. Like,
well, so I mean, I gotta ask you. I mean, do you feel safe? Have you felt safe on this drive? I mean, obviously there were a couple times where I took over, but, like,
yeah, no, I think it's,
you don't seem overly concerned. You don't seem overly concerned in certain moments, even when we're going down the highway, that it was going to just, like, veer off the road.
No, I mean, but I am also a little bit foolhardy in terms of my perception of
Pioneer
danger.
Co-op.
You know, in terms of my perception of danger.
Opening perception.
Yeah.
Well, we can
perception of danger at Pioneer Co-op.
We're gonna have to have you on again. I'm gonna